Hey guys, it's Chris from Steeda, and I'm super excited today because we have our Mach 1 development vehicle. We're gonna go ahead and take it around back and have Jamie install all the Steeda parts on this to make this a Steeda Mach 1, and ultimately take it to the firm to get testing. So without further ado, let's get to it. So going over the parts that we include in the Steeda Mach 1, specifically this development vehicle. First off, we have our front Steeda sway bar. We have this preset on the second softest hole. That's the hole that we've determined is a great starting point for most of these S550s, including the Mach 1. We also have the bump steer kit, which we include with the competition package as tested, as well as the dual rate springs that, as we all know, these Mach 1s come standard with MagneRide, so we include our MagneRide dual rate springs with these vehicles. And then up top, to keep the alignment in check, caster camber plates. Moving on a little bit farther back, we have our 2-point G-track brace that we'll include with all of these Steeda Mach 1s. Like I said, all of these parts are race tested, track tested, and we definitely beat the crap out of these parts on our vehicles so you don't have to, and you know that they'll stand the test of time whether you drive this on the street or on track. The Mach 1s obviously already come with the Brembo brakes. For the regular Steeda Mach 1, they're perfectly sufficient for most particular situations. So they will come with the factory rotors, factory pads, but if you were to up the ante, get the competition package, we'll include our 2-piece rotors for better cooling, as well as Hawk DTC 60 pads for the front, DTC 30s for the rear, specifically for track, and then the Hawk HPS 50 all the way around for the street. So moving on to the rear, we have a ton of Steeda components to really just tighten up this rear IRS. The Mach 1's already awesome out of the box, but we've added a couple components that will definitely make it stick even better on track. So we have our adjustable toe links. These really help dial in your alignment and keep it in check. We actually lock out the factory adjustment point for the rear toe specifically, so all of your adjustment can be right here in the middle of the link. We actually keep the factory vertical links. We did some testing, and really comes down to, with a handling oriented car on track, the factory vertical links do the trick. So we'll go ahead and keep those factory. We also have our love these things, the Steeda IRS braces. These things really help stiffen up the rear end, and it gives an additional, I guess, mounting point between the rear subframe and the body of the car, just again, keeping everything rigid and intact. Additionally, again, MagneRide on these cars, so we have the dual rate springs in the rear. We also have our IRS subframe bushing inserts, as well as the alignment kit. So when we have this rear subframe down, installing everything on it, those are the quick components that we add in before we put the subframe back up into place. We also have our tow hooks here. This is totally optional. We are trailing this car all over the place for testing and development purposes. So it was super easy for us to add these Steeda tow hooks to keep everything planted down when it's on the trailer. And moving on, we also have our Steeda rear sway bar. Just like the front, I said the second softest hole for the front sway bar. In the rear, we found the softest for our adjustable bar in the rear. Is again a very easy neutral point to start with for these handling vehicles. And then once you kind of figure out your groove on track, you'll be able to adjust accordingly to your driving style. Moving a little further up into the subframe, we included the Ford Performance half shafts as well. These are heavy duty. These can take all kinds of abuse. We specifically included these because, at least on this vehicle and future Steeda Mach 1s, as well as the customer cars as well, we want these half shafts included for those who have the Whipple supercharger installed. So again, this is just a known weak point for supercharged vehicles. We want to make sure that these last the test of time, and that's why we include these Ford Performance half shafts. All right, we are at Florida International Rally and Motorsports Park. Really excited to be here. We have our Steeda Mach 1 development vehicle, and this thing is ready to go. We have our Steeda bits all under the car that we've already explained before. Stock setup that we've already tested here with a bone stock Mach 1. And then we're gonna up the ante with the competition package. You're gonna get your Steeda Trident wheels, as well as Goodyear Eagle F1 Supercar 3R tires. It's 100 tread wear specifically for track use, although it is still street legal. Hawk Performance brake pads, DTC 60 up front and DTC 30 in the rear. Needless to say, I am really pumped to get this car out on track and just see how much faster it is. So for those of you that are wondering, watching the bone stock lap, you can see that it was lightly sprinkling about halfway through towards the end of the lap. We actually ran the car all day long, multiple sessions, and the best lap of the day was that particular lap, 124.3. Back from the track, happy to be in some air conditioning again. We have Jamie Bell here. He's our head technician at our Valdosta location for Steeda, as well as our race car driver, our autocrosser. He has a 2013 Boss 302 that he autocrosses frequently, as well as our Q350 EcoBoost autocross build, and our resident Mach 1 driver. He's the one that took this car around the track at the firm. It's a technical course, it's brake heavy, and obviously he's kicking butt. So without further ado, let's dive in. So kicking things off, the factory bone stock Mach 1, as you guys already know, we ran this car back in May. It ran a 124.3. Max mile an hour was 111.3. That's on the main straight there, with an average of 69 miles an hour. So we took the car out again with all the Steeda components installed and stock brakes. That includes stock pads, stock rotors, and stock tires. So that's a 255/40 up front, 275/40 in the rear, with the Michelin Pilot Sport 4S tires, exactly as you receive it on the Mach 1. One thing to point out, that the factory alignment, before we touched it at all, I mean, Jamie threw it on the alignment rack just to see what the alignment was right from the factory. It was a 1.2 degrees negative camber up front, 7.1 degrees of caster, which I don't think we ever touched caster on these cars, right?
It's adjustable with the camber plates, but we usually don't change much off a factory.
And then 0.04 degrees of total toe out in the front, and then negative 1.5 degrees of camber in the rear, with 0.18 toe in the rear. And again, those are the factory settings. Now with the Steeda suspension, stock brakes, stock pads, stock rotors, stock tires, we went ahead and put a track alignment on there. That included negative 3 degrees of camber up front, 7.1 degrees of caster, which we did not touch, 0 degrees of total toe in the front, negative 2 degrees of rear camber, with plus 0.18 toe in the rear. And we're happy to say that 124.3 bone stock, you add the Steeda suspension, all the parts working in unison as they should, ended up with a 119.702. The max mile an hour is 115.2, so a 4 mile an hour increase, with an average of 72.4 across the entire track. One thing to point out on the baseline run, you're looking at a 124 on that straight. We think that was a GPS hiccup because every other run was anywhere from what, 110, 111, 112?
Yeah, all of them were in the 110, 111 range. There was none of them that were that high, and this car's never miled an hour that fast down that straight before, so there's no reason to think it did when it was completely stock.
Right. So we'll go ahead and kind of correct that to a 111.3. So that was the fastest for the baseline runs. But on the Steeda stock tires, stock brakes, with the Steeda suspension and our track alignment, we saw 115 on that straight. But Jamie, overall, how did the car feel for you after the Steeda suspension was added on?
The car was more stable. It was, with the sway bars, it was flatter in the lower speed turns that helped keep the corner speed grip up. The IRS parts that we put in, the subframe alignment, the subframe support bushings, the toe links and the IRS braces helped the corner exit speed, which by the graphs you can see that the corner exit speeds were much higher with the IRS components installed. And the springs, they gave the car more support, especially over the curbs and over bumps, and it just helped it be faster in transition.
Jamie's being modest. I mean, I watched him out there on track all day, both days, both the times that we were there. And I mean, the proof's in the data. I mean, you look at turn 4 into turn 5, baseline versus, you know, our after with the Steeda suspension. You're going from an 84 to a 97 mile an hour max between turn 4 and turn 5. That just means you're just able to stay in the gas longer. Because your corner speeds are going to be that much faster. And get this, turn 5, again, this is the alignment helping all those parts working in unison. Going into turn 5, your minimums for the baseline were quite slow, 35 miles an hour, in comparison to turn 5 with our Steeda suspension was 50.
Yep.
So that's, I mean, a 15 mile an hour increase through that turn. That's a ton of speed that he's able to carry thanks to all those suspension parts doing their job. And that's even with stock brakes too. Exiting on turn 6, we were able to get up to 86 miles an hour on baseline versus 91 mile an hour max. And that's just a testament to being able to put the power down to the ground, right?
That's all about corner exit speed, because the car itself, the horsepower torque of it did not change between our May baseline and our when we did the Steeda suspension and stock. This last test, we haven't tuned the car, so it's the same power. So faster speed out, faster speed down the next straightaway.
Exactly. So looking at turn 4, going into turn 4, this is another testament to the suspension being able to carry higher speeds through those corners. Turn 4 baseline, your low is 58 miles an hour. But you add the Steeda suspension, that track alignment as well, you're looking at 69 miles an hour. So 58 to 69 into turn 4. But summing everything up, looking at that top level view, the average mile an hour for the entire track baseline, that's 69 miles an hour for a bone stock car right off the dealership floor versus 71.4 miles an hour. So all across the track, your overall average, you're going to be going faster. And again, those stock brake pads, they do great for a couple laps, but they get hot pretty quick. I mean, did you experience any fade? Did we actually push it far enough?
We had fade several times where I had to back off, cool the car down, come in, let it sit and cool down, because the brake pads just got to a point where they quit. They were unable to handle the temperature and started having pad fade.
I mean, that's why we push these cars to the absolute limit, so you guys know what you're getting into when you take these cars out on track. At the end of the day, I mean, the weight of this car was what, 39?
The car itself was 3825 with a half a tank of fuel. Me in the car at 175, it comes out to 4,000 pounds.
That's a lot of weight to slow down.
And we tried to maintain the fuel level through the entire test sequence, from the stock baseline through all the other tests we did. We tried to maintain that same fuel level to maintain the same weight. It just makes everything a little more even.
So in terms of the parts we've added, the sway bars, for example, did you feel any difference stock sway bar versus our adjustables, like in mid-corner, things like that?
The car stayed flatter through the middle of the corners, and the flatter that you can keep the attitude of the car, the amount of lean that it has, the more grip you're getting out of both tires on that end of the car. If you've got the front of the car flatter, both of your front tires are going to grip better. That's the biggest thing you see, is your mid-corner speeds are higher, and usually that goes back to the sway bars doing their job. They're controlling the amount of roll in the car.
And we talked a lot about the IRS components already, being able to put that power down on corner exit, but the perhaps my favorite part about this whole ordeal and all of the Steeda package that we add to this car is the dual rate springs. I mean, probably the biggest benefit you're seeing on those dual rate springs would be in the S's, correct?
Well, you're seeing it in the S's, but you're also seeing it in turn 4, because what the graphs don't show you about that turn is it's a fairly high speed corner, but it's also off camber. And the springs really help to support the chassis going through that off-camber turn to maximize the amount of grip you have and the speed that you can carry through that corner. The speed from turn 4 to turn 5 shows how much grip the car had, because we went from an 84 mile an hour top speed between turn 4 and turn 5 to 97. That's a huge increase.
For sure. I mean, I did a couple passenger rides with Jamie, and I mean, he wasn't even going full throttle, but coming into turn 5, that drag run from turn 4 to turn 5, it isn't long, but to see almost 100 miles an hour with the Steeda suspension, that's a huge testament to how well the car was able to put that power down.
I mean, yeah, that's when you can get that big of an increase corner to corner. It's just the car's putting power down. It's getting power down, and it's exiting the corner clean. It's not getting wheel spin.
For sure, and that shows obviously in the time too, 124.3 versus 119.7. Do you have anything else you want to add?
Not really. It's just the car was a lot more fun to drive with the Steeda suspension. It was more consistent lap to lap, and like I said, it was just more fun to drive.
So to recap this test, honestly, we just really wanted to see what the car would do in bone stock form versus our Steeda suspension, leaving the stock tires intact, leaving the stock brakes intact, and just letting the suspension do what it's supposed to do. And that's exactly what this test showed us. So if you were to get the Steeda serialized Mach 1 and you do intend to take the car out on track, we would highly recommend picking up the competition package, which is our next test. You'll get 19 by 10 in the front, 19 by 11 in the rear, Steeda Trident wheels, wrapped in Goodyear Eagle F1 Supercar 3R tires, 305 square setup. It's 100 treadwear. It's really going to be sticky. And on top of that, we'll give you Hawk DTC 60 pads for the front, DTC 30 pads for the rear. And needless to say, we threw it on the car to see what Jamie can do, and let's see what that test came out to be. lie, this was the test we were most excited for because we were able to get some proper rubber under the car. The Goodyear Eagle F1 Supercar 3R tires are 100 tread wear, incredibly soft, and with a wider contact patch, 305 square, we were able to have higher corner speeds, higher corner X, actually higher speeds everywhere. And on top of that, we had our Steeda two-piece rotors to help with the cooling of the super aggressive Hawk DTC 60 pads up front and DTC 30s in the rear. In addition to that, all the other Steeda suspension is the same as our previous test with the stock tires, stock brakes, everything else, but just with some proper tires and proper brakes. So kicking things off, I mean, Jamie, how did the car feel? It had to have felt awesome.
Oh, it was great on the Goodyears. The grip was excellent. They stood the tire temperatures very well. The temperature outside during this test got up to 98 degrees. The track temperature was in excess of 130, and the Goodyear tires held up extremely well for the duration of the test. We didn't have any issues with the tires.
So did the suspension complement the tires, would you say?
Very much. The tires helped complement the suspension. Because of their grip, they allowed you to use the additional stiffness that the suspension provides.
For sure. And I mean, the time, everyone's looking forward to that time. We will go ahead and say it. So to recap, 124.3 baseline stock, right? With the stock tires, stock brakes, and the Steeda suspension, as well as a track alignment, we were able to obtain a 119.702. And happy to report, with the Goodyear Eagle F1 Supercar 3R tires and the Hawk brakes with our Steeda two-piece rotors, we were able to get a 117.8. So knocking off pretty much 2 seconds. And I know that you kind of said to me in passing afterwards that if we had another session, another heat cycle, you could have gotten that down into the 16s.
Yeah, if we'd had a little bit more time to get comfortable with the Goodyear tires, because this was the first time we've ever ran them. So trying to figure out what tire pressures they wanted took a good bit of time. And it wound up taking more time than what we had for the test, but we were still happy with the results we got. The 117.8 was extremely impressive for a 4,000 pound car.
For sure. And I mean, looking at the max mile an hour, we were able to get up to a 115.8 with the Goodyears. Here's the coolest part. So average mile an hour across the entire track was a 74.1 in comparison to the 71.4 you saw with our Steeda suspension and stock tires and brakes. And then again, comparing to the 69 average we were able to get with a bone stock car. It doesn't necessarily sound like much, but when you're talking about an average for the entire course, especially brake intensive course and lots of crazy technical turns at the firm, we were able to really see the improvements here. I mean, diving in, I mean, looking at that same turn 4 to turn 5, now we had 84 on the baseline, we had 97 with the stock tires and brakes and Steeda suspension, but Jamie was able to get up to 99 miles an hour with those Goodyears. And again, 100 mile an hour going into turn 5. That's you had to have some confidence. I mean,
you had to have confidence in what the car was going to do. You had to be comfortable with what the car is going to do, because that's a 90-degree turn, and you're going off in there almost 100 miles an hour. The biggest, I mean, it's a lot more speed going corner to corner. So it's saying, yeah, the suspension is working, the tires are working, the brakes were very good. Can't say enough about them. I mean, it's a very good track combination.
I mean, and diving in again, turn 4, you could see with the stock tires and brakes with the Steeda suspension, we were able to do 69 mile an hour after an 89 mile an hour run from 3 into 4. Versus 3 into 4 for the Goodyears and the Hawk pads with our two-piece rotors was a 90 mile an hour run, so 1 mile an hour faster, but we were able to obtain 2 more mile an hour through turn 4 with our minimum speed being 72.
the minimum speed in that corner went from 69 to 72 miles an hour. And again, like I said, that is an off-camber turn, so it can be difficult to carry a lot of speed through there. But the 99 mile an hour speed from turn 4 to turn 5 says a lot about how well the car came off of the corner, that it hooked up and went. And the minimum speed into turn 5 was 57 miles an hour, as compared to 50 with the stock tires in the suspension.
So we can't say enough. Putting the right tires in the car, the right brakes, everything else to complement that track alignment and all the suspension doing its job. And the best part is we've put plenty of street miles on this setup too, and its road manners are amazing. Would you say any increase in NVH?
There's no increase in NVH. The suspension, it has more of a firm feel, but it's still 100% daily drivable.
For sure. And I mean, the best way to put it would be like firm but not jarring for the dual rates, and the fact that we're able to utilize the MagneRide to another level. The stock setup on this car is awesome for sure, but if we want to take it and make it a little bit more track oriented, which is what we did and what we've proven here, I mean, the results speak for themselves. And you add the dual rates in, the MagneRide complements everything. It's constantly, now you have experience in this track with your boss, you have experience in this track with the Q350 EcoBoost. How did MagneRide help or hurt you in this test?
The MagneRide just smooths everything out. The speed at which the MagneRide suspension self-adjusts helps to smooth going through the S's is extremely rough, and it helps to smooth the car out. It keeps the car more comfortable to drive. It keeps the car on the ground longer. When you hit one of the curbs at this track, some of them can be quite jarring, and it doesn't upset the car nearly as bad as a standard double adjustable race shock would.
And the best part is we can throw these parts in the car, and I mean, you can drive to the track and not have any issues, and you're not being jarred all over the place when you hit bridge joints and things like that on the highway. This really is the full package, and utilizing that factory MagneRide only makes it that much better. You pop it in track mode, everything stiffens up as it should, but you pop it back in normal and you loosen up, and it's a nice ride home. So all in all, we're super pleased with the results here. And I mean, Jamie, do you have anything else to add?
Not really. I mean, the Goodyear tires really showed how well the car can perform with these suspension upgrades.
So that about wraps things up. If you're looking to purchase these tested and race-proven Steeda parts for your S550 or any other Mustang or Ford, go ahead and visit us at Steeda.com. If you're interested in learning more information about the Steeda Mach 1, the serialized Steeda Mach 1, or any of the other Steeda serialized vehicles, be sure to reach out to us as well, as we'll be happy to put you in contact with our Steeda Performance Vehicles team. So that about wraps things up for this video. Go ahead and comment below. Let us know your thoughts. We tried to think of every which combination to do this test the right way, apples to apples to apples all the way through, so we can really see what the parts do and how they improve the vehicle for the full package you'd get with the Steeda Serialized Mach 1 or any of the individual components you can purchase yourself right here at Steeda.com. Go ahead and hit that like, subscribe button, that notification bell so you can get a notification on your phone next time a Steeda video drops. And don't forget the most important thing, speed matters.